Welcome back to the Severe MMA YouTube channel for another breakdown of this season's Ultimate Fighter Season 32. Tonight's going to be on Episode 9. It is yours truly, Theo Lander, back again for another one of these breakdowns. A little bit delayed tonight. I actually wasn't able to watch this until 10:28 on the east coast of the U.S. Apparently, there was a soccer game, Barcelona Man City, I believe, friendly that went a little bit in overtime into penalty kicks as well. Does not explain why this could not have been available on ESPN Plus to begin with, because they're an independent streaming platform. They're not like it's not like they're on cable where they have to, compete for channels. Like ESPN can just throw the stream up. There's no limit on that as far as I'm concerned. Maybe someone who knows more that's watching this can drop a comment and let me know how that actually works. But that was ridiculous that we had to wait that long. I mean, at a certain point, at 10:06, I'm on Twitter seeing if anyone else having the same problems. Of course they are. And ESPN MMA's Twitter account is just tweeting out clips of the episodes. And then at 10:15, another one got posted up. So there was just a bit of drama here to start the episode here from the consumer standpoint, which we are going to get into the episode here, I promise. But I do think it's important to note that just because, it matters. You have to be on time with these things. And if you're not on cable, I don't understand why a soccer game on linear ESPN going a little bit over is affecting this from streaming. I digress. It actually even depend. It turns out that they didn't even air this live, as far as I'm aware. They actually just put a Serena Williams doc up because it ended up going up till 10:28, almost 30 minutes into the showing time. So they ended up just putting it up like on demand as the full episode on the ESPN Plus website, so you could watch without commercials, which was good. So I didn't end up being too late to get this done. But again, just dropping the ball for the consumers, for the people who are actually watching this and supporting your product. This might also be the universe's way of punishing me for watching The Ultimate Fighter, something that I probably shouldn't do again after this season. But anyway, we'll get into the episode here. It opens up with Dana telling us how great all these matchups are for the semifinals, how all these guys are just one win away from being on the live finale here. Unclear if that will be at UFC Noche. UFC Noche, they announced that Shevchenko and Grasso will settle the score in the co-main event. Typically, they want the coaches to be on the same card as the finale. This obviously didn't happen last year when they had UFC 292 in Boston. McGregor Chandler obviously had not signed to fight yet, bit of a different circumstance. So I'm not sure why they're not doing that here with this one. Perhaps they're moving away from that tradition. It's going to be the way that it is going forward, but who knows? Perhaps maybe they even get added on to the card at the end, because I know Dana said something about how this was going to be a special 10 fight card instead of 12 or 13, 14 sometimes as it gets up to. Maybe they add them on after the show finishes airing. Who knows? But anyways, we get into here, like I was saying, Dana's talking about the matchups, and he keeps harping on the fact that this is the most international Ultimate Fighter season ever. And we sort of follow that theme when we go back to the Ultimate Fighter house to start the episode. And Giannis is cooking a Greek dinner, sort of like a barbecue style. He's got everything sort of cooking on the grill for both teams in the house. Now, this is important to note because Patty McCory brings up that this is the first time they've all sat down together, to break bread, both teams. And it's a very wholesome moment. So, very glad to see that happening, especially in such a high stakes house. A lot of pressure on these guys, especially this late in the tournament as well. Always good stuff to see that happening. So, Omran basically gets to be the first guy that we see preparing for this fight. He's telling Grasso that he really wants to choke Loader out. He did a great job in his first matchup in the tournament facing a Dagestani wrestler. So now he says he wants to test himself against the All-American wrestler, two different types of wrestling. So he's very motivated by the challenge of the grappler in front of him. Does some pad work, looks pretty slick on the pads. Obviously, he wants to keep the fight at range on the feet, but he does want to get that submission really bad. And Alexa Grasso mentions he's got like perfect arm length for an anaconda. It is something that he has used in the past before. He is pretty dangerous with that submission, so wasn't surprised to see her bring that up. Oman then also mentioned something that's very interesting here as well. He says that he noticed in Ryan Loader's past fights that he gets tired in the second round after sort of blowing his load in the first round. So he's sort of going into this with a mindset of, yeah, I want to keep this one on the feet, but absolutely want to try to take this guy into deeper waters, get this fight as late as possible, get him tired increase your chance of winning, obviously. We then go back to the house. It is time to talk to Ryan Loader. He is not training at this point. He is actually FaceTiming his family at the house, something that all the fighters get to do when they make it to the semis. So excited to see the rest of the guys in the upcoming episodes get this experience as well. But he FaceTimes his family. They're all together at the house. It's his mother, father, siblings, nieces, nephews, all that good stuff. His father tells him that he's been watching some tape of Omran. He's like, "Oh, you got to take this guy down, ground and pound, easy." Good to see the feedback in from the family as well. That was a good watch. And they start to say goodbye and how proud they are of him and how they can't wait to watch him compete on the Ultimate Fighter. And he starts to get a little bit emotional as they say goodbye. Obviously, something we're going to talk about a lot here, and we have been talking about a lot, has been like the emotional wear and tear of being in the house. They kept talking about how they have no phones, no contact to the outside world. So being able to actually talk to your family, and especially when they're all together like that, when you haven't been able to in so long, means a lot to these guys, obviously, and you can see it right there. We then sort of go back to the gym. Ryan's talking about how he views Omran as an opponent here. So he's very dangerous as a striker at range with elbows he steps in with. And then he mentions his anaconda choke like twice. He keeps bringing this up. The anaconda is a big theme early on in the episode. So it sort of gives you that feeling like, maybe Omran might pull this off, but we will see about that. So Shevchenko, she then keeps pressuring Ryan not to rest during training. She says, like, when you get tired, your arms are heavy. When you're training and grappling really heavily, you just have to push through that. You have to find a way to embrace the suck almost. But then she also sort of ends it with a caveat of you have to remember to rest smart when it's time to fight. Um, Another sort of tactic that's maybe a little bit unorthodox. I remember that we opened up the season with people talking about how it was a bit too much that Shevchenko wasn't allowing, her athletes to be drinking water during practice and things like that. So I think we've gone a little bit away from that story, and people sort of almost forgot about it at this point. This is not something that is on that same level. It is still, like I said, unorthodox and something that some people would sort of, take a second look at. But um, who am I to deny the coaching of Valentina Shevchenko? Ryan basically says he doesn't want to make this any secret at all. All American wrestler. He wants to take Omran down in the middle of the cage. Specifically, he wants to get to the middle. He keeps mentioning this one as well because he doesn't want him to be able to use the cage to get up. And obviously, All American wrestler, you're used to wrestling on the open mats as well. So it makes sense for him to do that. It's now Omran's turn to FaceTime. He does not get to talk to a group of people. It's just his brother FaceTiming him from the car. But his brother is just like over the moon ecstatic. His brother is someone who was supporting him from the very early beginning. They didn't really have a lot early on. His brother was working some part-time jobs, helping out Omran in the early beginnings of his MMA career. He keeps on mentioning how his brother is super, super supportive, and you can just feel the energy oozing out of him through that FaceTime call. So that was good. It was good to see a smile on Omran's face. He clearly enjoyed that, and it's something that he honestly he probably needed more than anything, to be able to have that close contact to a guy, not just someone who supports him in his career, but someone who's very close in his family. It's his direct brother. So very happy that he got to FaceTime his brother Ali. And then we also cut to another scene in the house where Omran is praying, and who joins him? But none other than Coop. Coop sits down to join him. Coop is not a Muslim. Omran is, so they're praying on the mat where they do, and Omran's sort of telling them how they go through their process for that, and how that there's certain steps that they have to go through, and they sort of start talking about how the Ultimate Fighter House has become this melting pot for a bunch of different religions. I mean, there's Christians, there's Jewish fighters in there, there's Muslim fighters in there. And they say that they're really appreciating how open everyone is to everyone else's different beliefs, which again, great stuff in the house. There's zero drama here. Ian's been chomping at the bit to get some drama on this season, The Ultimate Fighter here. He's not going to get in this episode either. Everyone's getting along. Everything is hunky dory. This is all happening as well as Omran's praying with Coop directly in front of Ryan Loader. Not there's no tension at all between these guys. They're gonna get in the cage the following day, to actually compete for a chance at the biggest fight in both of their lives at this point. Um, and there's no animosity. So these guys are all absolute professionals. I commend all of them. It takes really, really big men to be able to do that. So shout out to them for that. Both fighters end up making weight the next day. Omran does require the curtain. He was just barely over the limit with his clothes on, as the commissioner said, but no real drama there. Like we weren't concerned at all. He didn't look too sucked out anyway, so we don't really know how hard the weight cuts are. But as far as we can tell from the short cuts that we do see of them, doesn't look like it was too much of a problem for either guy there. So all good to see them happy and healthy going into the fight. Um, they end up walking out here, and I did leave this as a note here just because I thought, um, I don't know, it honestly isn't important, but I just think that the music for this season of Tough has been terrible. Not that it ever really was great, but like Omran's walking out in this terribly corny song, talking with lyrics of "sacrifice, I'm a dog," dude, like it's just the worst music I've ever heard. And I don't know why they feel the need to implement that right there, but you know, a lot of things ESPN did tonight didn't make sense, to be honest with you. So maybe that's why I felt the need to include that in there. But anyways, we'll move into the actual fight here. Round one starts off very, very slow. There were no strikes thrown in the first 45 seconds of the first round. And even then, there's some insignificant low kicks that don't really fully land from both. They're sort of partially checked. Nothing really significant to look at in terms of scoring. Omran does start landing some good straights early, good 1-2 very early on after that 45-second mark. Still, through the opening 2 minutes of the first round, super, super low pace. Omran was able to double up on a jab a couple of times. Ryan has a good body kick that he's landing as well, but Omran's always responding with a right hand down the pipe. He's finding that accuracy early on with the straights. Loader then lands his first really stiff jab of the fight, I should say. He then shortly shoots a double, gets a takedown with about 50 seconds to go. He lands some pretty minor strikes to the rib of Loader. I mean, he definitely does load up on them. Like there's maybe about 20 of them, but they're not extremely hard. They don't look like they're causing Omran too much discomfort. It's kind of a weird round to score, to be honest with you, because it's not like Omran was doing, you know, extremely significant work on the feet compared to Ryan. They both were having their moments, but no one really had that big moment to sort of steal the round. I did just lean towards Omran 10-9 for this round just because I thought he slightly outedged him on the feet. Loader was backing him up, controlling the cage the whole time. But again, as we know, if the striking is not absolutely then that doesn't even come into play at all. So I did just barely give that first round to Omran Shaban. Wouldn't be mad if someone had given it the other way, but yeah, it was just sort of one of those rounds. This is, by the way, a side note. This is going to be a 3-round fight because we're in the semifinals now, not the typical 2-round events that we've been having previously. So round two begins. Omran starts with some solid low kicks and straights. Excuse me, low kicks and straights. He scrambles out of a takedown attempt from Loader, but then he ends up getting clinched against the cage. This is actually, in my opinion, the most significant moment of the fight is that Loader starts ripping these combinations, body hooks, or hooks to the body. Yeah, I think he lands about like 5 or 6 of them, and he really loads up on these. He really throws them with a ton of power, and it seems like Omran's really bothered by that for, honestly, the better half of a minute there. He's sort of circling away out of the cage, trying to get some time to recover. Obviously, not only does that just hurt in general, but it's going to tax your gas tank as well. It's a huge change in pace from the first round, which, as I mentioned earlier, was very low pace. All of a sudden, he finds himself under deep pressure from Ryan Loader with that body shot. So they eventually separate out. Omran is able to recover from the body work. But then Ryan Loader just score a double leg, gets the takedown with 2.5 minutes on the clock. Doesn't really stay on the ground for too long. They get back up to a clinch. He does some minor damage there, nothing too significant in that scenario. Loader, basically, he gets him to return back to the mat 2 or 3 more times. But then Omran just popping back up, so that there's really nothing much happening there either. Loader does eventually get him back down to the ground, sort of a backside position. He sort of rides out that spot for a while. They basically, again, back up to the feet. Omran's very hard to keep down once he gets there, and it's taking a lot of cardio out of the sails of Ryan Loader. So they do end up back in a clinch position with Loader controlling. The round ends. Of course, biggest moment of the round is those body shots from Ryan Loader. He definitely also looked like he really wanted to sell out for some takedowns in this round. And it really wasn't working his way. So he's sort of finding himself in a position now heading in the third round where it's tied, perhaps. However, his corner's telling him that he's definitely up two. I don't know how confident they should be about that. Again, wouldn't be mad at someone for scoring the first round for Ryan Loader, but definitely not a guarantee that he was up 2 rounds, and they seem very confident about that. Sort of a theme that we're seeing recently, not even recently, it's sort of always been a thing that's happening in the UFC and mixed martial arts in general. Coaches, not really anticipating the scorecards correctly, maybe giving improper advice, but, regardless, Ryan Loader doesn't really look like a guy who's trying to sit on a lead here because he comes out. He has a big block of a head kick early on that Omran throws towards him. He looks super confident in the striking at distance. Some great jabs from Ryan here. He starts to maybe make Omran look a little bit fatigued here. Some deep breaths from him early in the round. Um, you know, Ryan Lover is able to back Omran up. He's sort of controlling the cage again. Sort of been the theme of this fight as well. He was able to really control the center of the cage the whole time. And that's when Omran's basically looking to load up on some low kicks for him as well. He's letting his combinations go. Loader, no matter what is happening, no matter what Omran's throwing at him at this point in the fight, he always has an answer. He doesn't wait more than a second and a half to return something else going back the other way. So, um, credit to Ryan Loader here. This is a fight where even in his own assessment, he had to get Omran down to get the win. And he's ending up in the third round. Not only is he not looking extremely tired like he usually does, but he's also doing well and going toe to toe with Omran on the feet. So I think regardless of what happens in the rest of this tournament, he can walk away from that and sort of have that feather in his cap. It's a big accomplishment for him. So yeah, they end up trading low kicks. There's a minute to go. You can feel the urgency soaking into the UFC apex here. The the teammates are getting louder. The corners are getting louder. You can hear the the tensity in their voice. We end up seeing here a big uppercut from Omran. He's eating some shots in return, but he doesn't seem as affected by them as Ryan Loader was. Omran's throwing some kicks. He then perhaps knocks him down. I haven't been able to see a replay of this just yet, but it could have been a slip. And I kind of want to say it was a slip. It didn't really look like a true knockdown. He'd hits him with a really hard shot to get him to the ground with a right hand. But regardless, Loader pops right back up. So even if it is a knockdown, it doesn't look like it's one that really stung him too badly. That was about with 5 seconds left in the round. He pours in some good shots. He's really letting his combinations go against the cage, trying to do everything he can to score this third round in his favor. Unfortunately for Omar Shaban, it is just a little bit too late for all of that stuff. It ends up being a unanimous decision victory for Ryan Loader. I had scored a 29-28 Loader. I thought he did win the second and third round. There is obviously a scorecard for him to win 30-27. They didn't actually read out the scores on the broadcast, which I kind of wish they did. Perhaps that might be public knowledge now that the episode's aired and Nevada will release that. Who knows? I will be looking out for that, though, because I am interested in seeing how they scored that first round because it was a difficult one to score. In my assessment, really the thing that won Ryan Loader this fight, it wasn't really his grappling, although he did use that to secure a lot of good positions in the second round. It was the striking that won him this fight. The biggest moment of the fight, like I said, was those body shots in the second round that really backed up Omran. A 5-6 shot combination right there. But really, it's the jab. Ryan Loader's jab in this fight was sublime. Like, he had a really, really stiff jab, not one that was just accurate, one that was really hard for Omran to deal with, and it cracked him every time he connected with it. Very impressed at his ability to go toe to toe with Omran when he couldn't keep him grounded. It felt like he sort of had to go to his plan B here because he was able to get the takedowns, just wasn't able to keep him down, unfortunately. His cardio even looked good as well. He maybe faded a little bit at the end of the last round. But for a guy who we had cardio concerns of before, and even concerns that Omran had shared himself, I thought he gave a very good showing of himself here. So he has a lot to be proud of. Unfortunately, the Team KF fighter by way of Finland, Omran Shaban, is going to be going home. Or I guess he'll be in the house still, but he's no longer in the competition. So if you're watching over in Ireland right now, you have Patty McCoy to look forward to. He won't be next week, though. Next week, we have a treat. This is going to be Con Offley versus Rudy Roots. And we also are going to have a basketball coaches challenge finally. I don't know what exactly they're doing. It looks like they're doing some sort of like basketball shooting competition. They have WNBA star Kelsey Plum in there to help them out with that. So we'll finally have some sort of mini games to look forward to. Not going to be just the meat and potatoes of the Ultimate Fighter as it has been thus far. But yeah, that was really it for episode 9. Not an extremely eventful fight, not an extremely eventful episode outside of the cage either. I feel like we're sort of getting into that mode of the season where we're going to be having less time outside of the cage just because they're having that extra round every fight. So yeah, we're sort of here in the home stretch here. After this, I believe there will be 3 more episodes. Each episode is for 1 semifinal fight each. Like I said, next week is Con Offley versus Rudy Roots. So if you are interested in that, you know where to find us right back here on the Severe MMA YouTube channel next Tuesday night. It will be broadcasting live as soon as we have the video uploaded to YouTube. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked the video, leave us a like. And if you really liked it, subscribe, tell all your friends. And thank you so much for joining us. Good night.